This is a 34-minute video, so I made a table of contents so that you can examine exactly what you want to see and go directly there rather than watch the whole thing. Remember, hit the like and subscribe and bell icon if you want to get notified. It helps the channel. A friend of mine had this sitting around his house for a while. He knows I work on things, so he brought it over when I volunteered to see if I could make it run. The first thing I'm going to do is power wash it, but I won't do much else until after I see if I can get it to start and run. If that happens, then I'll fix it up so that it's very usable. This is what it looks like right now. There's a lot of trash on the bottom. It's pretty dirty. But otherwise, it rolls nice. Doesn't look too bad, but you can't tell about the engine until you try and start it. Well, it cleaned up pretty good, and I've got one of my battery packs hooked up to the starter. I'm going to just take a compression and at the same time try and see if there's a spark at the spark plug. All right. I got just under 120 pounds compression, PSI. I did not see a spark at the spark plug, but the compression is very encouraging with respect to going a little further on this job. When I took the engine cover off, I found a whole lot of mouse home building inside the fins and on top. It was just a mess. So I had to clean all that stuff out. Otherwise, and then there was all kinds of debris in the fins. What that makes is for the engine to not cool off so well. Also, I found this magneto, which has seen much better days. And there was no spark, so I knew I had to replace it. And it took me about as much time to find parts for this whole thing as it did to do the work so far. And then things are hard to get off, like this magneto. Right here, you can see that the top of the bolt broke off in the hole. I'm going to have to drill that out, and otherwise the magneto won't stay in place. And when I put stuff back, I'm putting some never sees on the screws, so if I have to work on it again, or if some other poor guy has to work on it, stuff will come apart a whole lot easier. I also found a couple other things that weren't working, like this seat switch. And normally I would try and fix this. Looking underneath the seat, I found this starter solenoid. When I took one of the leads off here, it broke apart, but it wasn't working either. I have ordered the magneto, and I'm gonna get that before I start ordering a bunch of these other parts. It's not like I need this lawnmower right now, but rather than order these, find out that the engine won't run, although I'm pretty sure it will. I'll make sure it runs, and then I'll order the rest of these things. And actually, looking at this unit, a lot of it is in really good shape, and it's not a cheap unit, so I think it's worth fixing. When I took this carburetor apart, took the bowl off anyhow, it was really hard to unscrew this, and when I took the bowl off, it was full of rust. You can see it's just not looking too good. I can get a brand new carburetor, air filter, fuel filter, like that over there, and the hoses, and a new spark plug, all for under $30. I'll probably do that anyway, but I think that I'm gonna just look at what's in here, and I'll coat the inside of this fuel bowl with epoxy, which is fuel proof, and see if this carburetor will run the engine. Uh, Again, I want to do that to see if the engine is going to work before I spend money on new parts. Well, I cleaned the bowl with some coarse steel wool and a scraper. It's most of the rust is gone, and not the surface stuff, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to put some epoxy. I'm going to coat the inside with epoxy. I'm done coating the inside with epoxy. It's 5-minute epoxy. I'm going to put this out in the sun and while I dive into the rest of this carburetor. When I took the bolts out of this to take the carburetor off the manifold here, I had to use this wood chisel as a wedge right there in order to pound it off. It just was stuck for so long that it was hard to get off. But with the wood chisel, it came off pretty good. There's not a lot of debris, so I probably reused that gasket. I tried these screws with a screwdriver, and if they weren't going to come off easily, I wasn't going to bother taking this off, but they did turn okay. So I'm going to take this off and clean these, well, this butterfly. The other one won't come out like this because it doesn't have screws on it. Anyhow, then I'll take the float off and see what's going on. So I took everything apart on this carburetor and cleaned it out scrupulously. I sprayed carburetor cleaner, this stuff here, in every hole that I could find, and I did some delicate probing in the holes just to make sure there was no foreign material lodged anywhere. And it was coming out pretty clean when I stopped spraying. Took the float off. This is the little stop valve that prevents too much fuel from going into the bowl that's attached here. The bowl turned out real nice. Here's the epoxy coated interior of that rusted out bowl, and it should do okay. We'll see. I do have to find a new O-ring for here because the other one was gone. So I took these butterflies out. They just fall back in, and I'll put the butterfly back on into that slot there that you see right there. That'll hold this butterfly valve in, and we'll see if the engine starts once I get the magneto delivered today. Well, everything is back together and it works nicely. I did make a note. I turned this needle valve in until it's seated and counted the turns. It was 1 1/4 turns with the slot parallel to the ground. So there's the slot parallel to the ground, and so I shouldn't have to be making any adjustments. We'll see. I took apart the seat switch on this tractor riding lawnmower because it was not apparently working. Anyhow, I thought I was going to destroy the seat, but it's only just a push thing. So Uh, I took it apart, and what was really the biggest problem with this was these contacts, and they go inside this little plug-in. They were so corroded that there was no way a contact was going to be made with the other part of the wire. So what I'm going to do, and this is, I could buy a new switch, but on the new switch, they don't do this. They don't put some silicone dielectric on these parts to keep them from corroding like I do. So this switch will be better than new, and it'll outlast a tractor, my guess. So I'm going to do it on all the contact surfaces here, so that they don't, corrode outside in the rain and humidity. And what is very important about any of this stuff is don't lose the parts. Like there's a little spring right there, and it's easy to lose track of that. And there's another spring about the same size in the top of this thing. So know your parts and know where the various parts go. When you put them back together. Now that little pin goes right inside where the spring is. And now I have a switch that will work. It's really going to be tricky to get this screw out. And it has to come out, otherwise the magneto won't be secured in place. I flattened the top of that bolt with a file, and I put a center punch in the middle with this. Otherwise the drill walks off. Anyway, while I was drilling what you see, this drill broke. So I had to go and resharpen it. I'll have to see if I can get it deeper so that I can use an easy out to get that bolt out. We'll have to see. It was a marathon getting the stuck broken bolt out of this hole. I ended up breaking a tip off of this drill, just a little piece of it. In the hole, and once there's a piece of hardened metal in a hole, other drills can't drill past it. So I ended up using a dental pick like this to jog it loose and then flip it out of the hole, which I was lucky to do. And in spite of all my efforts to not get a piece of hardened metal in the hole, I did it anyway. And then I tried to drill on a slight angle into that hole because I didn't want to take off all the stuff on top of this flywheel, and I ended up having to do that anyway because I had to get straight down to that hole. Otherwise, when I chased the threads with a tap, I chased the threads with this tap after I got all the old bolt out. It never unscrewed. It just I just took it out by drilling it. Anyhow, it was about 2 hours worth of effort. Otherwise, this would not have been this long of a project, honest to God. Well, anyhow, as long as I've got it disassembled this much, I'm going to put some of that black rust converter on these parts again, so that the next poor guy who works on this won't have as much difficulties as me. That turned out pretty nice. Now I'm going to put it back together and see if it runs. Well, let's see what happens. I think I'm gonna go ahead with taking the rest of this thing apart and moving it up and getting it ready for service. The front of the hood was cracked badly, I guess, but not so bad that it couldn't be repaired. So I've been doing some plastic welding on it. Here's an example of what I did. Now, it doesn't look pretty, but it hangs together a whole lot better when it's not, you know, actively cracked. So this is how it's done. You heat this guy up. Now, I've already repaired this from the inside, so the rest of this is kind of, I'm going to say cosmetic. The reason I do this, or kind of cosmetic, and the reason so what I do is I heat the plastic up, and then I use this blade to kind of heat it a little deeper and then smooth the surface out. It's not pretty by a long shot, but it'll hopefully keep the cracks from coming back and look a little bit better than no hood at all. Finished. Here's one of the finished repaired cracks. It's not pretty, but it is very functional. And up here where there was a big hole, I filled that in and then I painted it with heat-resistant paint. The only reason I'm using heat-resistant paint is because these light bulbs are incandescent. I may switch over to LEDs, but for right now, and again, it's this will be behind a lens, so nobody sees this as long as it reflects light. While cleaning up the mower deck, I found this hole. I've got a couple of pieces of pretty metal that's thick enough for this application. It's not a structural thing, but so I've got these guys ready to go. I took the zinc off of the edges so that the weld doesn't get too much porosity in it. I've cleaned up all this, cleaned the rust off. and it's ready to weld. I think I'm going to take a lot of this stuff off just so, again, whoever works on this later on will be able to get things on and off a lot easier. We're putting a patch on the hole in the deck, and there it is. Welder, my daughter Allie. I knew I would have problems remembering where everything went, so I took a photo, and now I have everything reassembled according to the photo. It's nice. I'm glad I did that. Anything that rotates has a tendency to wobble and vibrate if it's not balanced or the shafts are not straight. So on this deck, this spindle shaft was not straight. So I took a sledgehammer like this, and I found the high spot and whacked it with the sledgehammer. I don't recommend it. And next year I'll just replace these. But it's straight now. You can take a quick look there. You know, it might be a 16th or a 32nd off, but it's way better than the 1/8 of an inch off that it was before. I'm in the process of sharpening these blades, and I just want to show you what how they can get off balance. So what I have is a round drill clamped to the table, and I'm going to center this blade over the drill and see which way it falls. So you can see that it fell to the left. I'm going to turn it around and do it again and see if it's still, well, it'll fall to the right now. Not too bad. So it's not too far out of balance, but this is how you can check it. To get it close enough to avoid some of the shaking that would occur if the blades are out of balance. And I'll check this again after I put an edge on these blades. I put an edge on the blade with this angle grinder, and it's looking pretty good. This is the side I had to take most of the metal off, and I checked with a scale. So I marked it right here, and then I checked from here to here to make sure that this distance was about the same as this distance, and they're pretty close now. And the balance is a lot better than it was before. There's just a little bit of heaviness on this side, but I think that would be okay. I'll probably buy new blades next year. I'm starting the process of taking the engine off the chassis of this riding lawnmower to replace the gasket at the oil pan. And to start it, I have to get the pulleys off of the engine shaft. And I'm hoping that none of this stuff is seized, and so far I'm okay. I was able to break loose the bolt that holds the pulley on pretty easily. All these came off easily. I guess there's an advantage to having an oil leak so that everything gets lubricated and doesn't rust and seize up. Anyway, it's raining outside. That's why I'm working in the garage. Well, the engine came off really well. And all these bolts that hold the oil pan on were so loose, it's no wonder it was leaking. So I'll loosen all those and then take the oil pan off. I cleaned everything off as pretty well. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I got most of the dirt off the top. I stuck this putty knife in this side a little bit, and I tapped up on this guy here, and it just came apart. I'm just getting ready to lift it off. Yeah, and there it is. So this has to be wiped out, but otherwise the interior looks pretty good. Oh, yeah, it looks good. Even the cylinder wall looks okay. So I'm pretty encouraged. This is where it was leaking. The gasket doesn't look all that bad there. Well, yeah, well, whatever. I'm going to replace it. There are other videos out there about how to do this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, for me, how to do this. I use this wood chisel. It's very sharp, and I put it at a really low angle so that I don't gouge the aluminum, but that I get all the burrs and all the gasket off. Now, one of the videos that I watched, honest to God, this is why I do it, because they're so valuable. And you never know who's going to appeal to your way of learning. Anyway, this thing right here has to be like that when it's the governor, when you put the pan back on. So if that's like that, you're not going to make it. The gasket is on. The oil pan is clean. And the governor is in the right spot here. So I'm going to start to slide this guy on the shaft. The engine went back together very nicely. And it starts and runs great. There's a switch attached to this wire here underneath the chassis as a safety to make sure that clutch lever is depressed before starting. There's a switch in there, the thing attached to the red box, to prevent the engine from starting when the mower deck is engaged. And then there's one underneath the seat to make sure that the driver is in the seat, not with his hands underneath the deck. All those were corroded, just like that ignition switch. That's a new one in there. But once all those connections were cleaned up and checked to make sure that they were working properly, this thing started. The motor started with the key like it's supposed to, and now I'm in the process of putting it all back together. This mower was looking pretty good and working great. It started up right away, and I drove it out of the garage and was letting it run for a little bit out here in the driveway, and all of a sudden the motor stopped, and well, I took it apart and I saw why it stopped. There's something underneath this flywheel where the generator charger is, and the magnets that run it, there's all kind of little pieces of magnets under there. It's a mess. So I got this flywheel puller for $18 at Harbor Freight, and I put it on there and snugged it up really, really good. And now I'm going to hit that thing with a sledgehammer and see if it'll pop. All right. So here it is. Oh, well, hellfire. It did pop. So the flywheel's coming off, and we're going to see what the hell is underneath this thing. I hope there's not too much damage. Oh, well, there you go. So I'm going to have to buy a new generator. We'll see. Maybe a ring gear for starting too. With two locating lugs here and here broken off, and one of them with the side broken out, what I did was I called around town and found a welder who was confident enough to do it. Now, aluminum die castings have no ductility, so when something breaks off, it breaks off brittly. And these lugs were able to be relocated very confidently, and they are very, very close, even after all this welding. But I had to do some gouging out of the material around here and a little bit around here. And this one, he just plugged the hole, and I had to locate and drill and tap this hole to fit the ring. So here's the ring, and it fits. It's very tight, but it fits, and I'm pretty pleased with it all. Yeah, right there, see? And I put the flywheel on top and spun it around to make sure that there was nothing hitting this ring. So next stop is reassembly and see if it'll start. I got the engine back on the tractor, and I tried to start it, and it popped over a couple of times, but then I couldn't it died, and I couldn't start it. And what I found was you see the key there. This is the crankshaft top, and there's a keyway in the crankshaft, and this is the flywheel top, and there's a keyway in the flywheel, and you put that key that's down there to keep the timing correct. And the reason it wouldn't start was because the timing was off, and this key the flywheel had slid about 90 degrees out of position. No wonder it wouldn't start. Now, it took about 30 seconds to say, and it took me about 2 days to come up with what was wrong. Well, there it is, running. I'm going to turn it off and put the rest of it back together. Everything is clean, reassembled, lubricated, and working. Yeah, the paint job's not fabulous, but I don't know that matters much. For me, I think it looks pretty dang good. If you got something from this video, click the thumbs up like button and the bell icon and subscribe. That way you'll be notified when I make a new video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.